Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Let's make sure that this mic is on and popping. All right. Just in case. I don't want any issues. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, we got a lot to talk about today. I missed the day yesterday. They switched up the game on the kids. So, practice was from 2 to 4 yesterday. I had a podcast that I had to get done. And then by the time I finished the podcast, I had to go get the twins. And once the twins got home, the game was over, right? So I said, no biggie. I'll couple yesterday's practice with today's practice. And I also wanted to talk about the recap of the game because I went back and watched the game. I'm pretty sure a lot of you went back and watched the preseason game, or at least the first couple of possessions again to kind of, get a feel for what really transpired. I really didn't need to watch it again. My first initial reaction to what I saw was exactly the right reaction, but I went back and watched specific players in particular to go and see a few things. Like I had an issue with that first third down, and I'm like, well, what the hell actually happened? So I went back and watched that play in particular, a couple of film, plays on the all 22s. And I got some clarity on some things. I watched Jamin Davis in particular. I wanted to see what he and Cole Holcomb were doing at the linebacker position. Remember, I talked about we didn't see a lot of the Buffalo nickel. I was wrong. So when I went back and watched, I actually saw very early on in the game, the second or third snap of the game, you had Derek Forrest in the game. So we wondered, or at least I wondered, who would we see come in first? Would it be Percy Butler or would it be Derek Forrest? I thought it would be Forrest, but I wasn't sure. Now we have confirmation that, in fact, the first Buffalo nickel sighting with 3 safeties on the field was, in fact, Derek Forrest, and it was relatively early in the ball game at that. So, and he did not do poorly either. He was really solid. I like how he came up in field. I actually thought Cam Curl had a rough go of it. I did not think this was one of his better performances. Speaking of which, let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly from the game, and then we will put a bow on the first preseason game, move on to some more relevant topics like practice from yesterday, some injuries, and then practice today and some of the developments that came from practice today with pads on. So today was the padded practice. Those are always, I think, the most informative practices, if you will. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about the pressers after the practice, because Ron spoke and he said a lot today. Did Ron Rivera? It was only 7 minutes and some change, but there was a lot to be gained from what Ron said. We got our first sound bites from offensive coordinator Scott Turner, so it's good to hear from Scott. I guess Jack may be around the corner then if we're hearing from coordinators now. So we got about roughly 10 minutes of Scott Turner, and then we heard from J.D. McKissick. So we'll talk about that and whatever you guys want to talk about a little bit later on in the show. So with that said, they chopped the roster down to 85 by the end of the week. Rosters will be trimmed down to 80. And then you have that final 53-man cut down after the third preseason game. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But let's first put a bow on the preseason game. So the good from the game. A lot of you, for some reason, after the game was frustrated with the defensive line, didn't think there was pressure. I don't know what you were watching. I very vividly remember and recall talking about how much pressure we got on the quarterback in that football game, and that the back end really didn't hold up their end of the bargain, but the pressure was there. And upon further review, going back and watching again, the pressure was extraordinary in this game. I thought Daron Payne, he had a pressure very early in this game. Unfortunately, again, the quarterback, and I think at that time it was Baker Mayfield, was able to get rid of the football. But Deron Payne had a pressure. Jonathan Allen had a pressure where he took the guard and absolutely dump trucked him. I think it was the guard. It might have been the center, but just scooped his ass up, took him into the backfield and right into Baker Mayfield. But again, Danny Johnson ended up getting beat on the particular snap on a slant. Sweat had the pressure on Sam Darnold on the touchdown pass. You had the deep ball that Baker Mayfield attempted. There was pressure by Daniel Wise, who was phenomenal in this game. Like, for me, one more game of that, and Daniel Wise is the fourth defensive tackle, and I don't think there's a discussion really to be had there. I mean, he was phenomenal. And just the fact that he got in as early as he did, I'm talking about pressure on Baker Mayfield, tells you how they feel about Daniel Wise. I think he's got that thing sewn up like a tailor right now. We'll see if that continues. But to me, Daniel Wise was phenomenal in this game. And to me, he's the fourth defensive tackle. He got pressure on that particular snap when Mayfield went over the top for the deep ball. Great coverage on the back end by both William Jackson III and Bobby McCain. And then he ended up getting a sack later on in the game, did Daniel Wise. The pressure was applied by Casey Toohill off the edge, and he cleaned up the mess that Casey Toohill made. So I thought Daniel Wise was phenomenal. James Smith-Williams came off the edge they tried to run a little screen on a third down. The one third down that the defense actually got off the field on was them trying a screen, James Smith-Williams and Deron Payne getting in pretty much scot-free and deflecting the football and forcing the Panthers off the field. So I thought it was pressure galore, honestly. Everybody got their turn. Everybody was getting, to the quarterback. It's just they were never able. There was a pressure early in the game where Mayfield had to escape because the pocket was collapsing around him, and he took off, ran to the outside, and ended up, I think, maybe getting a gain of 1 or 2 before being escorted out of bounds. So I thought the pressure was phenomenal all game long, really, with all the units that they put out there. Even at the end of the game when Shaka Toney picked up the personal foul for grabbing the helmet, that was still pressure. And he had pressure on multiple plays late in the ball game. So I thought the pressure was phenomenal throughout. So that was one of the good in the game. Another good was William Jackson III. I thought he played exceptionally well. He didn't have a bunch of opportunities, but that deep ball that they did throw, he was right there. Now, he actually missed. He swung and missed. And I don't think the receiver was going to catch it, but good thing Bobby McCain was there. Okay, good thing Bobby Mack was there, because I shudder to think what would have happened had he swung and missed. The guy still caught it. We would have been irate. But that's why safety help is so important. That's why it's good to have a guy be where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. So good job by both Bobby McCain and William Jackson III. And I think I have to go back and amend a statement I made earlier. I think after the game was immediately over, I think I blamed William Jackson III for not laying hands on that receiver on the touchdown, Rashard Higgins on the touchdown pass from Sam Darnold. That was not William Jackson III. He was playing his responsibility. He was off on that play. And the defender that was in front of the receiver was Jamin Davis. He was the one that should have laid hands on it. And there was no excuse. He literally was 1.5 yards away from the receiver in terms of at the time of the snap. Like, he was directly across from him. He's watching in the backfield instead of getting a hand on that receiver. He should have redirected him. He never touched him. There was no one threatening him in his zone, in his area. So there was no reason to panic and say, hey, I got a job to do. There was no one on his side of the field. He should have laid hands on that receiver, and he didn't. And that, I thought, set off a chain of events, allowing him to kind of maneuver his way through the defense and give Sam Darnold a target. If that guy doesn't become open, Darnold's got to throw that football away, because Montez Sweat is screaming down his throat about to sack him. And when I say throat, I literally mean he jumped up and grabbed him and threw him down by his throat almost. So that's a shame that didn't, result in an incompletion, or even worse, a sack maybe. Sam Darnold's a clown. Who knows what he would have done had that receiver not been open. But got to give Darnold some credit. That was a great anticipatory throw, and it was in the perfect spot where Kendall Fuller couldn't make a play on it, and good throw and catch. But I need Jamin Davis to be better in that particular situation. And that's a teachable moment. That's the job of the staff to say, hey, this is where you went wrong here. This play doesn't happen if you redirect this receiver. There's no way he's in that same spot where he ultimately ended up. If you lay hands on him and disrupt him at the line of scrimmage, there's no way he's still in that same spot. There's no way that throw is attempted, and there's no way there's a touchdown there. So, teachable moment. That's what you want out of these games, right? You're going to make a mistake, make it now. So we can go over it, and you can be better because of it moving forward. Another good in the game, obviously, Carson Wentz. I thought Carson Wentz was really, really good. Going back and watching him, even the misses. I was disappointed with the 2 deep ball throws. I thought they could have been laid out there a little bit better. But the first one, I went back and watched the first one several times. And I think that's a byproduct of a young guy that's just not experienced at going up and attacking the football, because that ball that Wentz put there, if Amani Rodgers just stops, if he just stops, that ball's going to come right to him. He's going to catch it, and then he's going to run after the catch, or he's going to get a PI because that defender never turned and looked for the football. He played Amani Rodgers the entire time. So, for me, if that's Cole Turner, someone a little bit more experienced at attacking the football in the air, in flight, if that's Logan Thomas, instead of that receiver or that tight end jumping up in the air as he's fading back, moving away from the football, he's just going to put the brakes on and come back to the ball. And one of 2 things is going to happen. That's either a catch or that's pass interference. Either way, it's a first down. So I thought that wasn't that as bad of a ball as I thought initially when looking at it. That was a bad attempt at the football by Amani Rodgers. But again, that's a guy that's still making the transition from quarterback to tight end. I'm not mad at the kid. He had a phenomenal day. Speaking of on the good list, Amani Rodgers was a guy that you could definitely put on that good list. He was outstanding in the game. Stands for that one attempt. And again, I'm not going to kill a young guy for, not knowing where to put the brakes on, come back for the football when you've really never done that. So I thought Wentz was decisive. I thought he went through his progressions. The one play did scare the hell out of me where he easily could have fumbled. I talked about that play live, or a post-game live. We talked about that play where they send the tight end. The tight end starts the playoff, which is Amani Rodgers, starts the playoff with a chip. He just gets a piece of the defensive end on his way out. That allows the running back to sift over, come across the formation, and now Gibson gets a piece of him, pushes him up the field, and Wentz steps up, but he's still surveying the field, and he comes to his 4th read at the last moment to Amani Rodgers. Probably should have gotten it to Amani Rodgers a little bit sooner. That was a scary play because he easily could have had that ball knocked out of his hand and fumbled, but luckily enough for us, that didn't transpire, but he's got to speed that process up. That said, I thought Wentz was outstanding. Thought he went through his progressions, thought he got the football out quickly. There was one play to Brian Robinson down by the end zone where he probably could have got rid of it a little bit sooner, but I'm nitpicking. That's not a big deal for me. I thought Wentz was really good. Same with Brian Robinson. He's on the good list. He was outstanding. Another guy that just got an opportunity, seized that opportunity, made the most of it, and you can see some of the ripple effects from that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on and as to what happened in practice today. But Brian Robinson was phenomenal in his debut as a Washington Commander. He was definitely on the good list. Another guy that I thought was on the good list in this game in particular was Charles Leno Jr. I thought he was outstanding in the run game and in the pass game, equally effective. Norwell had his spots. The screenplay, I thought Norwell did a really good job. There were a couple of plays where I thought Norwell did a phenomenal job of getting his job particularly done on that snap. But then there were some plays like the first run of the game to Antonio Gibson, where I thought Norwell just simply was too slow out there, to pick up that block to give Gibson an opportunity. So, Norwell had his the touchdown run by Robinson. That was all Norwell and Charles Leno Jr. for the most part. So those two I thought did a good job on the left side for the most part during the course of this game. Keith Ishmael is another guy that I thought actually held it down That was an immediate emergency start by him in a preseason game, and I thought he stepped up. So he didn't look like the moment was too big for him. Obviously, he played last year, but just good to know that if we have to do that, he can step in and get the job done. Let's see. We get to the bad in this game. I thought Cam Curl was bad in this game. So the very first run of the football game was about a 4-yard gain. And I thought the linebackers attacked the line of scrimmage aggressively. I thought everybody played their gap soundly. And now you just need that last defender to come in and fill immediately and make the tackle so that it's not a 3-4 yard gain. And Cam Curl was late to the party. Okay. You get to that first third down of the game. And again, it's a simple coverage. They're playing a form of zone. It's a mesh concept. So they've got a receiver from the left side of the formation coming across, and they've got a receiver from the right side of the formation coming across on shallow crossers. It's a mesh concept. So the receiver coming from the right side of the offensive formation, the left side of the defense, crosses Cam Curl's face. Cam Curl, his job is to redirect and let him go. If you watch that play carefully, you see that Cole Holcomb is waiting to receive that mesh concept and that receiver coming across the formation. He's ready to pick him up. Cam Curl has done his job. You've run him out of your zone and effectively run him into Cole Holcomb's zone. And now you pick up the guy that's coming across from the opposite side of the formation. Well, what does Cam Curl do? He runs with the guy that came across initially and doesn't let him go, doesn't pass him off to Cole Holcomb, but instead runs with him for far too long, allowing the guy who ultimately caught the ball, Shi Smith, to come across wide ass open. And you're wondering, what the hell just happened? Well, that was all Cam Curl. They're in zone coverage, and he's supposed to pass the first receiver off, pick up the second guy, and that play should have never happened. But Cam Curl was too aggressive. He was too eager, and he allowed that guy to be wide ass open and pick up a huge chunk of yardage after the play, after the catch, rather. So I thought constantly I kept watching Cam Curl, and it just seemed like he was a step slow in the run game, a little bit indecisive in pass coverage. He's going to be fine, not tripping, just wasn't one of his better performances. Derek Forrest, I actually thought he was okay. He's not in the bad category. I just wanted to mention him real quick. I actually thought he was solid. Want to see more of him is how I felt after watching, the game back over again. Thought he actually did some really good things. He was flying around out there, as Derek Forrest usually does. And so I need him to harness that energy and focus it into positivity, right? Don't fly around and to nowhere, and miss. But I thought he was flying around out there, and I want to see more of him out on the field in that Buffalo nickel role. Percy Butler, first opportunity. He was really with more of the second unit. Had an opportunity for an interception. That really upset me. Ron talked about the fact that there was an opportunity there. And in this league, you can't miss those opportunities, man. I need him to catch that football. I mean, literally, it couldn't have been thrown to him any better. He did a great job of sinking underneath that route, bust his ass to come from the opposite side of the field to get all the way underneath that route. And then you put yourself in the perfect position to make a play, and you let the ball go right through your hands. I mean, that cannot happen. But that's why he's a defensive back and not a wide receiver, because he can't catch. So that was a little disappointing. But, other than that, I thought Percy Butler was okay. There was a couple of things, there was a seam route to the tight end up the middle of the football field that he didn't. I thought that there was just a little bit too much space there. And, you could argue that the linebacker there, David Mayo, could have gotten a little bit more depth. But, I mean, at the end of the day, David Mayo can only run but so fast. I thought that there should have been, a little bit less space with the depth that the safeties got on that particular snap. But, again, teachable moment for a young safety. Something else that I didn't like. We're in the bad category. Danny Johnson. And I love Danny Johnson, and my confidence in Danny Johnson has not wavered. Okay, it's one game. It was not his best game, but it's one game. I'm not tripping about Danny Johnson. and how he played in the game. I didn't think it was one of his better performances. I know he can play better than that. So I hope that, moving forward, he does play better than he played in this game in particular. But Danny Johnson was not good. He gave up the third down conversion early in the ball game. And really, I could probably just say the entire secondary stands for William Jackson III wasn't great. There was a pressure. I want to say that pressure was by Daron Payne, and somehow Mayfield is able to complete the pass to Zylstra, who dives down on the ground in front of a couple of corners. I'm like, golly, guys, like, we get instant pressure and you still give up a completion. So, and it was a low throw. It was a hell of a catch by the receiver to go dig it out. I mean, you can't be that upset, but it's still like, damn, every time we get pressure, you guys aren't doing your job on the back end. You're off, you're soft, and you're giving up completions. That was frustrating. Not to just single out Danny Johnson, but he wasn't at his best in this ball game. I think that was all I had for the ugly, the bad category. And then you get to the ugly for me. The ugly was the fumble by Antonio Gibson. Obviously, you can't have that. That's something we've talked about all offseason with him. That's the reason they drafted Brian Robinson. That's the reason that we're going to have a long discussion about, Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson and what occurred at practice today. That can't happen. Scott Turner talked about it again today. Same with Ron Rivera. That's something that you just can't have. And this is something that he should have been working on and it was really freaky how it happened, but still, it's no excuse. He was literally inches from the ground, but that's, again, when you have an MO around the league that you're a fumbler, at no time am I not going for the strip, right? Until you're ruled down, I'm trying to pry the football out from you because that's your MO around the league, is that you'll fumble the football. So he should have been protecting that ball a little bit more than what he was on that particular snap. The missed extra point can't happen. You put yourself in a really tough spot by missing extra points. All points are important. You score a touchdown, you get a little bit of momentum, and you piss it away by missing the extra point. It's a poor snap. It was a great job by Tressway of getting that thing up. I need Joey Sly to make the damn kick. No, it's not the most clean of operations. The timing may have been off a bit. Make the damn kick, okay? The ball was there. The laces were out. Everything was there. Make the kick. I know it wasn't clean. I know the timing might have been messed up a bit, and it's easy for me to say because timing is everything with these kickers, but that's why you get paid. Make the kick. Okay, Tressway did a phenomenal job of saving that thing. Make the kick, and he missed the kick. That's unacceptable. Can't have that. And so that was really disappointing there. The kickoff returns, they were ugly. They were horrible. So I went back and watched. I remember going back. Somebody posted a clip of the video, and in that clip I said that I thought on the opening kickoff, Alex Erickson got back to the 22, and then I caught myself and I was like, I don't even think he made it that far. No, of course he didn't make it that far. None of our kickoff returns made it out to the 20. The first 3 kickoffs of the game, including the opening kickoff, they went to these yard lines respectively. The first one went to the 17, the second one went to the 16, and the last one went to the 18. That's pathetic. Okay, 16, 17, and 18. Kyrick McGowan decided 8 yards deep, I'm coming out, right? I want the world to know, got to let them show I'm coming out. And I'm like, dude, I get it, trying to make the team. But you know what you just did? You just pissed off the head coach by returning it to the 17-yard line. You didn't help yourself. You just pissed off the head guy by getting to the 16. I think his went to the 16. So the return game was trifling, is what it was. Call it what it was. It was trifling. And you're starting the offense with its back up against the wall. Because no possession, honestly speaking, with the rules the way they are, no possession should start worse than the 25. If you aren't sure, you can get it back. And there's no definites in this thing, right? But if you got to at least get it back to the 20. If you're not 1,000% sure you can get it back to the 25, then just let it bounce in the end zone and take the touchback. No drive should be starting on a kickoff. Unless there's a penalty, no drive should be starting inside the 20-yard line. That was pathetic that the first 3 offensive possessions all started inside the 20-yard line. That's garbage. The Taylor Heineke interception, that's trash. I don't care. And there was pressure, and the guy got his hand. This is why Taylor Heineke has to be a backup. That throw in particular is exactly why he can't be the starting quarterback, because as you saw, he had us on a nice little drive there. We're moving it down the field, and you're feeling good about the rhythm we're getting into. Worst case scenario, we're coming out of this thing with 3 points. We're starting to build a little bit of momentum. We scored a touchdown on the last offensive possession. Here we are on the move here with a chance to get a field goal at worst. Maybe a touchdown comes out of this thing, and he airmails it over the head of the receiver right to the damn corner or safety, whoever the hell it was. And, you know, he comes over and he's talking about, yeah, the guy got a piece of me, and he did, but that's not an excuse, okay? So that's the part that frustrates me with Heineke. He'll put together this beautiful drive, and then it'll be capped off with a turnover. So that was ugly too. You know, that pissed me off as well. You know, taking a scoring opportunity off the scoreboard, you never want to see that happen. So that was essentially my synopsis. I saw a lot of good things, man. I walked away really encouraged. You know, and obviously in the good category, Sam Howell. If I didn't mention him, I need to. I kind of get fixated on the starters, guys that I expect to contribute. But I don't want to do Sam Howell a disservice because he was phenomenal. You know, same with Alex Erickson, same with Dax Milne. They're all on the good list. And I don't want to leave those guys out. Even though I don't see them as key contributors, I think they're going to make the team. You know, I think Dax Milne is making his team. I think Alex Erickson and Ron said something today that got me to thinking like, maybe I'm like, are you playing with me right now, Ron? Are you like, you testing me? You know, so I don't know. We'll talk about that though. But Sam Howell was fantastic. You know, in his first NFL action, he looked poised. He looked, and there, I went back and watched a couple of those sacks he took, and you're like, yeah, that's on, you know, one of them in particular was on Sam Howell. Like, dude, you can't take that sack. But what you can see from him is that he's looking to make plays, right? He's looking to make plays, and that was something that I wanted to see because a wise man once told me a quarterback is judged on 2 things: what he does on third downs and what he does when the play breaks down. Okay. And so what do you do off schedule? And Sam Howell showed me that he's got off schedule ability. That's part of the reason why I love Carson Wentz, is because I feel like on third downs, Carson Wentz can win, you know, and he wasn't afraid in this game with the first third down of the game to push it down the field for too long. You know, we've been a nickel and dime offense in operation. It's 3rd and 3. We want to get 4 yards. The elite offenses on 3rd and 3, because most teams are playing the sticks. They're trying to take away the underneath stuff. You're looking to hit them in the head for 23 or 33 on 3rd and 3. And that's what Wentz was doing on that first possession. I love it. And you know Wentz is a off-schedule monster. It can be good at times, it can be bad at times, but there's more good with Wentz off-schedule than bad. And it was good to see Sam Howell showing us the ability to go off-schedule and make something happen when it was 3rd and 14. It was 3rd and 14. Like, you're not supposed to convert 3rd and 14, but he extended the play. He found an open receiver. He got it to him, and that was a thing of beauty. So showed the wheels on the 17-yard touchdown gallop, faked the draws off of a defender. There was a lot of good there with Sam Howell in this game. There was one throw. A lot of people talk about the 3rd and 14 play. They talk about the throw to Markin Michelle over the middle. That was a dart. They talk about the throw to Kyrick McGowan. That was a dart. My favorite throw was to one of the running backs out of the backfield. I can't remember if it was Jarrett Patterson or if it was Williams, but there was a defender draped all over the running back on a Texas route. and he puts it like literally right between the numbers with a defender draped all over him, with the defender's hand right here. He puts the ball right here. I don't know if you can see this. The defender's hand is here. He puts the ball right here. Like, that receiver, that running back had to catch the ball to protect himself. And that defender couldn't have defended the play any better, and that ball was just perfectly placed. And I go, wow. I mean, that's extremely accurate. So I thought Sam Howell, he throws a bootleg to Dax Milne. I was like, damn, did you have to throw it that hard? I mean, and it got there. Milne caught it and then got a ton of yards after the catch. He was good, man, and he showed off the arm strength. We've heard about the arm strength. I saw it firsthand. I was like, whoa, okay, this guy's got a rocket for real. So it's good to know. And there's a lot of good there with Sam Howell. So anyway, that is the game in a nutshell. And looking forward to the second game of the preseason and what we do against the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's get to practice yesterday. So yesterday was not a padded practice. So I was anxious to see how guys would feel. You know, you get the day off on Sunday. After the game, you come back Monday. Curtis Samuel, I was wondering, is he going to be out there? He was. You know, Samis Reyes was not yesterday. And so you're like, okay, interesting. You know, because remember, he only played 2 snaps in the game on Saturday, and neither were offensive snaps. They were both special team snaps. I talked about that directly after the game on the post-game show. Like, Samis Reyes, that's not a good sign. And today we got confirmation that it really wasn't a good sign. And you could see the tea leaves, right? We could all see the tea leaves and the writing on the wall after what happened in preseason game number 1. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show when we get to the roster moves. So the most interesting thing that happened at practice yesterday had nothing to do with what happened on the field at practice. Curtis Samuel did practice. That was good. But I told you, I was never worried about number 10. A lot of you were. I am not. And we're not out of the woods yet. But I am not worried about 10. I feel good about 10. I told you that's not who he has been through his career. So I'm not tripping. But what is starting to become a bit alarming is the fact that this offensive line isn't staying healthy. Now, we haven't had one single major blow from a physical standpoint to this line. They've all been, you know, small nicks, but those small nicks, just like at the tight end position, they add up. And so after the game, Andrew Norwell not practicing on Monday. You're like, maybe it's just a veteran day off. You know, maybe he just needed another day after the game. You know, these things happen. Okay. And then you get to today's practice and there's no Andrew Norwell again. And so now you're like, okay, wait a minute now. There's no Trey Turner. There's no Andrew Norwell. Now, the beauty of the Juice Weasel is that we had the return of Chase Roulier to 11 on 11 today, and he's going to play in the game on Saturday, barring any kind of setback, obviously, during the course of this week. He's going to have his first action since the ankle injury, but he's going to be on a pitch count. We're going to talk about that. You know, Ron talked about those things in his presser today, but he's going to be on a pitch count. And so it's like we get one guy back, but then we lose another guy. Sadiq Charles back at practice. That's a good sign, right? But we're trying to get the starting 5 offensive linemen some work before the start of the preseason, and that can't happen if guys keep getting injured. Now, I don't even know the extent of what happened with Andrew Norwell. I just know he wasn't at practice yesterday and he wasn't at practice today. So that's not good, right? Yesterday's practice was wet. It was a sloppy day, but they did practice outside because guess what? Football is played in most instances outside. You know, if a team plays outside on a natural grass surface and it's raining, they're not going to say, hey, let's go inside, and they're going to play the game outside. So they practiced outside. Now, today's practice was a big one because it was padded. And so today was very interesting. A couple of highlights from practice. Jamin Davis had a standout day. Again, I think he's trending in the right direction. What I saw in watching the game back was an aggressive downhill attacking linebacker. Now, it wasn't always in the form of making a play, but he was attacking offensive linemen, right? He was delivering the blow, not them delivering the blow to him. So I like that, right? Now the next step is either beating that guy, not looking to attack him, but rather beat him or go make a play. But, I like the fact that he's not thinking, he's just going. Now it's about going and getting the ball carrier. So that was fun to watch. He had a good day of practice today. William Jackson III continues. I think he's poised for a big year. He had a really strong day of practice today. Danny Johnson had a nasty one-hand interception. I'm pretty sure all of you have seen it. If you didn't, I liked it and reposted it on my Twitter feed. So that was one of the first interceptions that the defense has had in quite some time. There hasn't been a lot of turnovers in camp since the pads have gone on. So, and I told you, I love me some Danny Johnson. I believe in Danny Johnson. So I'm not surprised he made that play. It was a hell of a play. But, it was a physical practice today. Wes Schweitzer fell on his hip, left practice. So, again, this is why I'm starting to get a little bit anxious about the offensive line, because you tell me there's 2 days in a row without, and again, no explanation. I don't know. It could be something as minor as, he injured his finger, or there was a family matter. He had to go home and take care of it. And that's why Andrew Norwell hasn't been at practice the last 2 days. I don't know what the situation is, but he's not at practice. Obviously, Trey Turner's still not back. And Ron told us last week that it's still a good 10 to 14 days before they'll even reevaluate him to see if he's ready to come back. So we're still a week or two out from Trey Turner even being ready to come back to practice. So you're probably talking end of August into September before Trey Turner is even able to lace him back up and get back into the lineup. At this point, it's practice. I don't even think you can even think about this guy in a preseason game at this point. So you're still a couple of weeks out, at a bare minimum, a week out from Trey Turner returning. Then Wes Schweitzer, your number one backup, goes down. Sadiq Charles just got back. So you're not sure if he's going to stick around or not. And we just got Chase Roullier back. So I'm getting a little antsy up front, because as much as I talk about the depth of this offensive line, and we did get Cornelius Lucas. So the two big things out of practice this week so far on the offensive line is Chase Roulier's back, Cornelius Lucas is back. So there's a little bit of a level of comfort there with having your main pivot man back in Chase Roullier and having your first, tackle, your swing tackle, back in the mix. Because as we can see, they're vital. Same with Wes Schweitzer. Now, Ron said there was a bit of concern because he fell on his hip and there may be some soreness. That's why he left practice. They sent him in to shower and, kind of get evaluated and treated. We won't know more until practice tomorrow. I would assume he's not going to practice. We just saw a guy miss time with a hip injury. I want to say it was one of the tight ends had a hip. No, it was James Smith-Williams that had a hip. But James Smith-Williams is like 25, 26 years old. Wes Schweitzer is pushing 30. Shit heals up a lot differently as you get older. See Trey Turner, okay? Right, like a young boy gets the same quad injury and he's back, in a week. Trey Turner may not be back until September, and it happened at the end of July. So we'll see what happens with Wes Schweitzer. He's a tough guy. Hopefully he's able to, and again, I'm not rushing him back. I just want him to be ready if need be by week 1. That's the goal for all of this. But that's, a little bit disappointing. Another big takeaway from practice today with the pads on is that Antonio Gibson ran with and Ron talked about this, the 1, 2s, 3s, and on punt. I want to focus on the punt aspect of this, because when John Kine tweeted out this morning, and I was at the gym and I finished my workout and I get in my car and I look at my phone And the first thing I see is Antonio Gibson taking reps with the punt team as a protector in the slot. And I'm like, come again? And so I tweeted out, with the eyeball emojis, because I'm like, here we go. A lot of you, this is what you wanted. And Ron did the diplomatic thing at the presser. We want all of our guys. No, you don't. Stop. Come on, Ron. Stop with the bullshit. Okay. Starting running backs in this league aren't playing on punt return. Okay. They're not personal protector. Okay. They're not in the slot protecting on punts. Dalvin Cook isn't blocking on punt returns or on the punt protection team. Okay. That's not happening in Green Bay with Aaron Jones. Zeke Elliott isn't protecting on punts. Okay. Neither is Miles Sanders. So please miss me with we want our guys to be able to do everything. No. Because a week ago, Antonio Gibson wasn't on punts. Starting running backs in this league aren't on punt. So what that tells me is either he's no longer the starter or there's a real open competition for the starting running back position. And I'm not mad at that. Okay. I'm not mad at that at all. I like the fact that Ron didn't just delegate him as the backup. Okay. Having Robinson take all the first team reps, having Robinson off of punts altogether and giving that duty to Antonio Gibson now. I like the fact that he's keeping Gibson or keeping Robinson doing all the things that he was doing previously, but now having Gibby do the same exact thing simultaneously so he can say, hey, shit's open now. Who wants it? And this is the thing about Antonio Gibson. There was a warning shot fired, okay? We reported this around the draft, that shots fired, pop, 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 pop. Local police station got a call, first day, second day of the draft, that there were shots out coming from the Loudoun County area. That was Ron Rivera firing off a few shots to let Antonio Gibson know, hey, stop fumbling the damn football, man. I just drafted a running back in the 3rd round. Okay. We're not going to tolerate this shit this year. Okay. Get your shit together. We believe in you. We believe in you a lot. However, we got an insurance policy just in case you want to trip. Those were the warning shots. Authorities were called. They came out to the scene. Nothing there to really, report. They went on about their way, right? Went on about their business. We get to the first preseason, and we get to training camp. Let's not skip shit. We get to training camp. His ass is fumbling. It's one thing when it's behind closed doors, no one's able to see it. It's not a real game. You can tell yourself, he'll be better. Or work on him on the side field. A couple of reps after practice, protecting the football. He'll be fine. This is what I always try to explain to a lot of you out there. You cannot replicate real game action. This is why I am adamant. Hey, look, the elite teams, the good teams, the teams with players that have done this at a high level for a considerable amount of time, if you're comfortable with them not playing, so be it. But to me, this particular sport, football, you have, and really any sport, it doesn't matter. Baseball, basketball, football, you need reps. You need reps. There are no practices, there are no scrimmages that simulate actually going on the field with score and time being kept, with officials running down the field, calling flags. There's no replication for that. In practice, these are your teammates. They're not trying to take your head off. There's emphasis being put on keeping guys on their feet. So it's different when the opposition doesn't give a shit about your well-being. Nobody's looking to hurt anybody, but at the end of the day, you think Milo Eifler cared when he lit that damn running back up over the middle of the football? You thought he gave 2 shits about that guy getting up at that time? He don't want to hurt him, but he don't want him catching the football either. That's the difference between your teammates, scrimmages. When you scrimmage other teams, yeah, there's a little animosity. There was a fight between the Patriots and the Panthers today, okay? They're doing a scrimmage probably all week long, which means they're probably not going to play their starters. Maybe the Patriots won't. They're going to try to get as much work as they can out of these practices so that they don't have to put their starters on the field during the actual preseason game, which is fine. But you can't replicate what you get in an actual preseason game. Those are live bullets. And so Antonio Gibson can do all of the ball security drills he wants. We can talk about, hey, he's showing us this, that, and the third in practice. It's nothing like the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Ain't nothing like the real thing. He fumbled the ball in practice, and then he fumbled in the first preseason game. Now we have a problem. And I'm still team Antonio Gibson. A lot of you have already jumped ship, and that's fine. I get it. And look, he's down to his final strike with me. Okay? Strike one was last year fumbling 6 times. Strike two was fumbling in preseason game number 1. But the talent suggests that there should be a strike 3. That's the only way. That's the only reason I'm sticking around with Antonio Gibson. Because as talented as he is, I don't want to see that talent rotting away on punt protecting. On the punt protection team. I don't want to see this talent rotting away, sitting on the bench, watching other guys take his reps on the field. Now, that's his fault. It's nobody to blame for that but himself. So I'm not mad at the coaching staff. I'm not mad at anybody else but Antonio Gibson for putting himself in this position. That said, I'm all about giving this man another opportunity because of the talent that he possesses and what he brings to the table. So, Ron, I love the fact that Ron didn't just cast him away and doom him to, third team duties and relegate him to, punt return and punt protection team duties. And now there's no question that Brian Robinson is the lead dog. What he's essentially done is when we got to camp, the playing field wasn't level. It was 80-20 in favor of Gibson. All right. With the fumbles at camp and, some of the issues there, that playing field probably was reduced to 70-30, maybe 65-45, 65-35 by the time we got to preseason game 1. That fumble in the game and subsequently the boost we got offensively when Brian Robinson entered the game and the way he ran, physical, yards after contact, broken tackles, scored the touchdown. Those two things coupled with one another. It wasn't just the fumble. If Brian Robinson comes in and he's pussyfooting around and he's not picking up any yards and he's stagnant as well, then the decision isn't as clear cut. He came in and he went to work. His first carry was an 11-yard carry. His next touch, it was a screen, and that went for like 9 or 10. He came in and he went to work. And he was breaking tackles. And he was getting hit for a 1-yard gain, and he'd get 3. 2-yard gain, and he'd get 4. Kept the knees churning, the legs churning. He was physical. And the first thing Ron said out of his mouth after the game was, Antonio's got to stop stutter stepping. That's when he gets into trouble. So that tells me that they love what Brian Robinson did. And he wasn't clean. They talked about him not being necessarily clean on his tracks. Robinson himself said, I made some mistakes out there. I wasn't clean, but I was physical. I was decisive. I got downhill, and that's what Ron and company said. And I told you I needed to hear Ron after the game. I needed to see him. I needed to see the body language, hear the inflection in his voice. While he was disappointed in Antonio Gibson, he wasn't condemning him to the basement. None of the body language, none of the tone of voice that I got. He was visibly disappointed and somewhat perturbed by the whole situation. But it said he's going to give him another chance. That's what I gathered from it. And what he's effectively done is he set the the playing field now at 50-50. Came into camp at 80-20 Gibson. Now it's 50-50. With everything that's happened, with Gibson fumbling in practice and Gibson fumbling in the game, and then Brian Robinson taking advantage of the opportunity that was presented to him and helping his team get in the end zone, it's 50-50 now. And so Gibson's going to have an opportunity. I still think when the first team offense runs out on the field against Kansas City on Saturday, Antonio Gibson is going to be accompanying them. I really, truly do believe that. And he's going to get an opportunity. And what he does with that opportunity, and the biggest difference now is that in the first game, for as long as the first team offense was out there, Gibson was going to be out there. And Brian Robinson wasn't going to see the field until the second team with Taylor Heineke was on the field. That's how that was going to go. Now the biggest difference is Gibson might trot out there with the first team offense on that initial possession. But that second time that first team offense hits the field, I think you're going to see Brian Robinson trotting out on the field with them. And it wouldn't shock me if we got on in the first possession of the game is a 12-play possession. I wouldn't be shocked if by the time we get to play number 8 on that drive, you see Brian Robinson inserted in. Play 7, play 6 of that drive, Brian Robinson's in there. That would not have happened had this fumble and Brian Robinson's play from the first preseason game taken place. So this thing it's a whole new ball game at running back now. So much so that Ron, I think, is also contemplating, do I need to keep a fourth running back? So let's go to some of the comments made after practice today, because I found it interesting. And let me get my notes from Ron's presser out, because I took notes because it was a mouthful today. Ron said a lot. Again, 7 minutes, but there was a lot in this 7 minutes. So he talked about the numbers game that you play with a 53-man roster. Obviously, we're going to start having these roster conversations because the roster is starting to be trimmed down. This was the first trim down we had today from 90 to 85. Remember, Washington gets to keep an extra player, an 86th player, because of the participation in the IPP, the International Pathway Program with David Bada. So he doesn't count against the number of players on the roster, but you still have to cut your roster down to 85. He makes it 86, but they don't count him. So they did that today. We'll go through that here in a second, but Ron started talking about the numbers game that you play when you're trying to construct a 53-man roster. And he talked about the receiver position. And I was shocked to hear him say at receiver, what 6 guys gives us the best chance to win? And I'm like, 6? I've been saying 6 this whole time. Ron, you kept 7 last year. Did I miss something? Are you playing with me? Are you trying to throw me off of the trail? I'm sniffing around. I'm sniffing around, and maybe trying to throw me off of the scent. Maybe, I don't know, because at first I was saying 6, and every year's roster is different because last year's roster wasn't as talented as this year's roster. So you could keep 7 receivers because there was no one else at a different position forcing you to make a decision that you didn't want to make. I.e., Troy Apke. You could keep Troy Apke specifically as a special teams ace. Why? Guess what? Troy Apke wasn't, the rest of the roster wasn't as talented, so you could keep Troy Apke and tell him you just got one job. You'll never see the field in a defensive capacity. No matter how bad we're hurt, you'll never see the field in a defensive capacity. You're just a special teams ace. That's not the case this year. Clearly, obviously, him getting injured and not being able to participate for much of camp didn't help his cause. But I think they were leaning in that direction because I've said this already. They drafted, in the last 2 drafts, they've drafted guys that are special teams aces, guys that we consider to be fiends in Percy Butler this year and Derek Forrest last year. So if you feel confident in those guys' abilities, coupled with the fact that Cam Sims is the best special teams player on this team right now. He had an excellent gunner rep in the game. The very first punt, after the first possession of the game, we went 3 and out. He threw the deep ball down the sideline to Amani Rogers. It was incomplete. We punted the football. Watch Cam Sims on that play and tell me he's not a fiend, all right? That's why they're instrumental in your success special teams-wise. Got to have them. We got Cam Sims, and I think they feel comfortable that they've got other guys that will make up the core group of special teams players that will get us through the season without giving up anything crazy. So Ron said 6 receivers. Which 6 give us the best chance? I'm like, Ron, you kept 7 last year, bro. You trying to tell me something this year? Because if it's 6, we've done this before, and we'll do this again down the road. I don't want to bore you with this because I've done this enough. But if it's 6, that changes everything, because now you're talking about, is it Dax Milne or is it Alex Erickson? It can't be both. It's either or. It can't be both. With 7, it's and. It's Dax Milne and Alex Erickson. All right, and both had a phenomenal debut this past weekend. But if you're telling me it's 6, 5 spots are already spoken for. We know the guys, we know the names. There's only 1 spot, 2 guys fighting. And Mark and Michelle, I told you, I crossed him off the list. He's not making this football team. The hype was cool in camp. He's not making the team. I saw enough. I don't need to see anymore. I'm good. It's Alex Erickson or it's Dax Milne. And we know they're keeping Dax Milne. They're not cutting him. They're not exposing him to the rest of the league. They'll expose Alex Erickson. No problems. So that's not even a real question for me. If we're talking about who you're keeping, they're keeping Dax Milne. They're not getting rid of Dax Milne in favor of Alex Erickson. That's not happening. So are you keeping 6 or 7? Ron said 6, specifically 6. But then another interesting thing came up, and he said running back. Generally, this is a 3 running back team. And Ron, he did the Ron thing that he always does, where he harkens back to his Carolina days. When I had Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams and Fozzie Whitaker, it was a great 3, 3 running back backfield. And that's what you would like to have. That's what Ron wants. He wants 3 running backs. But I think this Antonio Gibson fumbling thing really troubles him, because listen to what he said after the fact. After he said that he would prefer the triumvirate in the backfield where you've got 3 guys. He said, you've got to have a guy that can spell those backs that has a similar game to the guy that you're spelling. Meaning, if you're going to keep Brian Robinson and he's going to be your starter, but you don't trust Antonio Gibson to put in the game, then you need another guy to spell your first and second down back. J.D. McKissick is your third down back. So you don't have to have another replacement for J.D. McKissick. And that guy will be Jarrett Patterson more likely than not, and he'll be on the practice squad. So if something were to happen to J.D., you could pull up Jarrett Patterson and you'd be fine. He's talking about on the roster, in game. That's why they went out and drafted Brian Robinson, because of the fumbles, the short yardage, but also there was no real backup. This is why Gibby was able to keep fumbling last year and not have to sit on the bench. There was nobody to take his spot. When they took him out, the replacement was Jarrett Patterson. He looks nothing like Antonio Gibson. He runs nothing like Antonio Gibson. It doesn't allow you to call the game the same way. And that affected us last year when we had those situations where Ron wasn't comfortable with Gibby, but he had to put him in there because he didn't have any recourse. Well, now he does. That's why they drafted Brian Robinson. Somebody that looks like Gibby. Gibby's 6'2", 230. Brian Robinson, 6'2", 228. The only difference between the two of them is one guy runs a 4.39 and the other guy is more of a 4.5 guy. But they look the same. They're physical. They're upright. And so, to me, Ron is essentially saying, do I keep 4 backs because I don't trust Antonio Gibson? Do I need to keep Williams on the roster, Jonathan Williams? Or do I go with 3 backs? I mean, it's a little bit of food for thought. And then he started talking about other positions, like, do we keep 9, 10, or 11 DBs? In my mind, there's no way you're keeping 9 DBs. You're keeping 10 at a bare minimum. Because you're keeping 5 corners. You're not keeping anything less than 5. And with the cutting of Apke, what it does is now it allows you to have a little bit of roster flexibility, because that was a spot that was assigned to the cornerback position, and that gave them 6. So that puts you at 11 because you're keeping 5 safeties too. I firmly believe that. When you look at now, they could not keep Jeremy Reeves. They've done it before. The last 2 years, Jeremy Reeves did not make the roster. Each of the last 2 years. He's always around, but he never makes the football team. So theoretically speaking, you could keep 4, but you're going to keep 5 because you always keep 5. The reason Jeremy Reeves didn't make the roster in the last 2 years is because we already had 5 guys. Well, without Reeves, you don't have 5 safeties. You've got 4. Now, what is Steven Parker? Is he a safety? Is he a corner? I told you they were going to do this ambiguous shit. On the team website, he's listed as a DB. And at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter. It's semantics. We've had this conversation when it revolved around Landon Collins. Linebacker, safety, who gives a shit? It only matters when we're talking about the 53-man roster, when we're trying to slot guys properly to decide what the number count is at each position. But the DB group is looked at as a whole. They don't really separate it into safeties and corners. We do that, but they look at it as, is it 9, 10, or 11 DBs total? Well, cutting Troy Apke means you just got 5 corners that are going to make the team, not 6, as it was last year. Okay? So now the question, I don't think you're keeping 6 safeties. I think you're keeping 5. So I think that number, the magic number at DB is 10. Ron's like, but if you keep a specific number here, then you have to start looking at another position to pull a name off of the board. And that's where things get tricky. Like for instance, remember linebacker last year? What did we keep? Like 4 linebackers, 3 linebackers last year? The number was some ridiculously low number that made us all look at each other and say, what are we doing? We didn't have any linebackers to keep last year. It was really bad, right? It was Jamin Davis, it was Cole Holcomb, and it was David Mayo. I think that was the extent. And was John Bostic on the roster early last season? I think Bostic was early in the season, then he got injured, if I'm not mistaken. And I think we kept 4 linebackers. I don't know, was Bostic last year or was he the year before? I don't think Bostic was here last year. I think it was Mayo. Mayo took Bostic's spot, and then it was Khaleke Hudson. So it was Khaleke Hudson, it was David Mayo, it was Cole Holcomb, and it was Jamin Davis. Those were the 4 guys that made the team. And we were looking around like, 4 linebackers, that's it? They can't do that this year because there's some young guys like Trey Walker, for instance. He flashed. I don't know if he's going to make the team, but there's some young linebackers that I think they're intrigued by. And really, when we talk about special teams, now that you're getting rid of a guy like Troy Apke, who was a core special teamer, you have to replace him with a guy. And usually the linebacker position is what makes up your special teams. Now, remember, they also had Shaka Toney make the team, and he's a core special teamer. So you don't have to necessarily have it at linebacker when you've got a guy that's a defensive lineman that looks like a linebacker that is on special teams. So you can kind of get away with that. And I think that's the kind of game that they were playing last year. But again, we're going to see the numbers game gets interesting. Ron talked about, do we keep 5, 6, 7 linebackers? Remember, the number was 4 last year. So the fact that he started with 5, which is usually where the baseline is intriguing. This is going to be when I finally sit down and really try to number crunch here, I still think it's not going to be as hard, but it's going to be interesting to see who doesn't make it and who does. Ron talked about Scott Turner being on the sidelines. Now, I'll talk more about that when we get to Scott Turner and what he had to say. Running back position, I talked about that already. It's an even playing field now. It's 50-50. May the best man win at this point. You got really 1 preseason game, and maybe Ron forces Gibson to play in that 3rd preseason game along with Brian Robinson now, and that helps determine. I don't think there's anything to prove in the 3rd preseason game. You should have your mind made up by then already who's your starting running back. I think this 2nd preseason game, the practices that precede this preseason game and the practices that are after this preseason game, leading to the 3rd preseason game, are going to be instrumental and vital in determining who the first team running back is. He talked about the preseason game number 2 and the pitch count. So he said they're going to play the 2nd preseason game, and they're going to play their starters, which we already knew. We're not the Rams. We're not the Chargers. We're not one of these teams that skips the preseason. We're not good enough. Frankly, speaking. You know, if you feel good about your quarterback, you feel good about your offense. Like, I think it's a joke that the Patriots aren't playing Mac Jones. Who? Mac Jones. The miggity, Mac. Boom, boom. I feel like that's a joke. Mac Jones was okay last year. He was not great last season, and he's a second-year quarterback, and you've got two offensive play callers, and you're not playing your starting quarterback. That's dumb to me, but whatever. That's not my problem. This is my team here, the Washington Commanders, and I would be pissed off. And I know some people are like, well, that's what happens when you play your guys. They get injured. Football is a physical contact collision sport. You play in the preseason, you play in the regular season. If you're going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt. But what I don't want is for guys to be unprepared when we get to week 1 because they didn't play in the preseason. That's what I don't want. You put guys in bubble wrap, get to week 1, and they look lost out on the field. They look out of sorts because they didn't play in the preseason. As I mentioned already, you can practice, you can scrimmage all you want. You cannot replicate game reps. Can't do it. You can try, but you can't. So he said they're going to play, and we expected them to play. But he said certain guys are going to be on a pitch count. And how long? Remember, there was a number last game, 15 to 20 snaps for the starters. Ron isn't putting a number on it right now. Maybe later on in the week, they talked to him on Thursday, the final practice of the week, and he's putting a number on it then. But right now, Ron's like, nah, we're going to play. And honestly, how they come out and play will probably more likely than not dictate how long they're on the field. If the offense goes out, scores a touchdown on the opening drive, they may only have one more possession in them. You know, whether they score in the first possession or not. If that's a 15-play possession and it ends in a touchdown, they may be done after the first possession. If the first possession of the game is an 8-play drive and it ends in a field goal, they'll be back on the field for a second possession. And if that one results in a touchdown, they're done. But if it's like this last game where it's a punt, 3-and-out punt, a turnover, and then a touchdown, they may be back out there for another possession after that. You know, who's to say? Same with the defense. So, but he said guys like Chase Roullier in particular will be on a pitch count. And it'll be interesting to see if there are any other players in particular that they aren't comfortable with coming back from an injury, or a guy that's been missing a little bit of practice time just got back and they want to see him out on the field, like a Benjamin St. Juste, for instance. You might want to put him out there. You know, Ron said after the game his hamstring got a little tight. That's why, because remember, Ron told us on Thursday that Benjamin St. Juste was going to play, and then he was a scratch on Saturday. So, you know, the explanation there was the hamstring got a little tight. They just didn't want to chance it. Duh. If there's any reason to be concerned, you sit him down in the preseason. There's nothing to discuss. So he talked about Wes Schweitzer's hip. I talked about that already. He left practice. I think tomorrow is going to be interesting because maybe they'll know more about the hip. I don't think he's going to practice tomorrow, and I think he's now in jeopardy of not playing on Saturday, which is fine. I just want to make sure that this isn't, you know, something that's going to keep Wes Schweitzer out, you know, past these 2 preseason games, you know. So we get to Scott Turner, and he talked about his comfort level with Carson Wentz, and he feels like Wentz is really starting to get it. He's starting to get comfortable. He feels like, first of all, he said it's been a pleasure working with him, and they're starting to create that synchronicity, that continuity that you need from offensive play caller and quarterback. They're starting to gel and mesh together. So much so that, you know, Scott Turner has made the executive decision, and he talked to Ron about it, that he wants to be down on the field during the games now forever. Scott Turner's been up in the booth. I think he got that from his dad, because when his dad was an offensive coordinator, he was always in the booth, because a lot of times these offensive guys feel like they can see the field better from the aerial view, you know, of being in the box. You see everything. You see the looks. You see if a guy missed something clearly from, you know, that booth and being elevated. However, when you're on the field, there's a direct line of communication that you just don't get. And you know, Scott talked about all of the different ways and challenges that you face trying to get in contact with your quarterback, having to get him on the phone, having to talk to, you know, the quarterback's coach and have him relay messages to you, or vice versa. And he's like, I'm, I don't want to do the middleman thing. I want to go directly to Carson and say, hey, what did you see here? Or Carson come to me and say, hey, this is what they're doing. We can take advantage of this. And he said, we've had these dialogues, during practice, and it's been very beneficial for both of us. And, he did it in the game on Sunday, and he really liked how it felt. So they're going to continue to do that. I love when coordinators are down on the field. I get it. It's a better vantage point being elevated and up in the booth. You see everything a little bit clearer. But I just like the hands-on approach of being able to talk to a guy. Now, if you I think it works great for teams like ours where you don't have volatile players. When you've got a head case at receiver, or a guy that is very demonstrative, like a Odell Beckham Jr., who might be berating the offensive play caller if he's not getting touches, you don't want your offensive coordinator down there. It's better if he's up in the booth so that guy doesn't have access to him. Like T.O. once upon a time. You don't want those guys having access to your offensive play caller. Your shit can go sideways quick. But we don't have a team like that. We don't have guys that are going to be visibly frustrated on the sidelines, throwing their helmet, trying to get to the offensive coordinator to give them a piece of their mind. We don't have that. So I think Scott Turner being down on the sideline is a good thing. He talked about Antonio Gibson, and I thought he had the quote of the day. He said, you can't waste possessions. And when you fumble the football, you waste a possession. Enough said. Enough said. And he made it abundantly clear in the offseason that Gibson is super talented. We believe in this kid. We think the world of him, think the sky's the limit, but he's got to hold on to the football. Made it abundantly clear. So did Ron. And so I'm not upset about anything that's transpiring because this is all self-imposed, self-inflicted by Antonio Gibson. And then he talked about Curtis Samuel and just the dynamic nature that he brings to the table, and that there's so much they can do, so many things that they've started to implement in practice, because this is the second practice in a row he's practiced, and he played in the game. And so he's around more. So now they're a little bit more confident that, hey, we can start implementing some of this stuff because you'll actually be around to execute it. These are Curtis specific plays. Nobody else on the team can run these quite like you. And so that's good to hear. And then he talked about the tight end position and, all the injuries and all the things. And he said, look, guys have to step up, and they've gotten opportunities and they've done some good things with it. And it'll really help when we get some of these guys back. But in the meantime, these tight ends have stepped up and they've done a bang up job. The roster was trimmed to 85 today. And in order to do that, they had to release some guys, put some guys on IR, ending their season. And so the moves that were made are as follows. Devontae Busby, cornerback, this was one of those, last to come, first to leave type of deals. He just got here, so he was the easiest to cut. Deion Calhoun as a guard, he was released as well. And then we just got word, not too long ago that Troy Apke, was released by the team. And, I think some of that had to do with the injury, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they just feel more comfortable with their special teams unit and guys that play on special teams. I think they've gotten to a point where they don't feel like they need to dedicate a roster spot to a guy that can only do one thing. Ron's huge on, having, multiplicity and guys being able to do multiple things. That wasn't Troy Apke. He was one-dimensional. And so I think that they were chomping at the bit to get rid of him, and he made it easy by not being healthy this year. Tight end Sammis Reyes, it was alarming that he only played 2 snaps on Saturday, and both were on special teams. So that told me that he wasn't in a great spot. Maybe the injury, remember, he was just coming off of an injury. Maybe that was a huge factor, but I don't think they really wanted to play him. I don't think they trust him yet. And remember, he's still learning the game. So, remember they did this to Cam Sims 3 years ago. Cam Sims had an ankle injury. He would have healed in 2 or 3 weeks, but instead they put him on IR so that he was essentially not available for the rest of the league to poach away, and that he'd be around the following year because they really liked him. They're doing the same thing with Sammis Reyes. Now, when you're put on the reserved injured list, your season's over. So Sammis Reyes and fullback Alex Arma were both put And you can have the slightest injury. You could say, hey, my hamstring is tight. Oh, reserved injured list. But, yo, coach, I'll be good in like 3 days. No, you're not good. You're going to the reserved injured list. However, if another team decided that they wanted to sign him, then Washington would have to reach an injury settlement with him, release him so that he could go on his way and sign with another team. More likely than not, that's not going to happen with either one of those guys. They'll be around next year, but they're done for this season. So that trimmed the roster down to 85, and then we'll see who the next 5 are a little bit later on down the line. So that is, the last 2 days in a nutshell. A lot has gone on. Antonio Gibson is in a battle for the starting running back position. Things are getting really interesting, and I am excited. So let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. Robert Parrish, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Robert Parrish, writes, these writers with their rhetorical questions, are they trying to piss Ron off, or are they really that stupid? I think sometimes these beat reporters, some of them are good questions. Some of them you're like, really? That's the best you could do, the question. And sometimes, like you said, they're rhetorical questions where they're asking a question, but they're answering it with the question that they're asking because they keep talking instead of letting Ron answer it. And I think sometimes people do that in order to not sound dumb. So if you know that I know that this is how it usually goes, you want to make sure you let that person know. I know that this is how it usually goes. And so a lot of times you make it easy on the guy. Instead of letting them answer and say that, you say it for them, and then they just go, you pretty much answered the question for me. You pretty much answered your own question. That's how it is sometimes. I told you, I'm not always the biggest fan of some of these guys and the questions that are being asked, but, it is what it is. Ron was definitely perturbed today. He was perturbed after the game, with some of the turnovers and things of that nature. So something else that I had in my notes that I didn't mention was he was frustrated in practice. He was frustrated with the way we practiced today. He said there were some things that really pissed him off, that he was not happy with during the course of practice. Now, what were those things? He did not go into specific details, but there were some things in practice today that, and it was reported by, a couple of the reporters that, Ron was barking at practice, and he was barking because there were some things that he was a little bit, disappointed in, upset by, unhappy with, whether it's the tempo of practice, whether it's mistakes, mental mistakes. That always pisses coaches off. I don't know what it was, but he definitely was, perturbed at practice, and he seemed a little bit ornery at the presser as well. Let's see. Got a super chat here from Tony P56. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Tony P56 writes, Lou, your mic sounds different. What linebacker should we grab? It did sound different. I listened to the video last week that I did. I was like, what in the hell is going on? I played with the mic today. It sounded better, and then apparently it sounds weird again. It kind of sounds hollow, So I'm going to have to play with it again. It may be time for a new mic. I may have to invest in a new mic. I've had this one for a very long time, so I wouldn't be shocked if he's starting to conk out on me. We've had some good times. It might be time for him to be replaced. As far as what linebackers should we grab, I don't foresee us grabbing any. Like, there isn't any good linebackers left. Like, Joe Schobert just got signed by the Denver Broncos. Like, that's the kind of guy that, was out there that you could have signed if you were really looking. Like, the veteran linebacker was Nate Gary. Like, that's the veteran linebacker that they signed. Like, I don't think we're doing anything else, to be honest with you. So if we sign a linebacker, it will be after teams start releasing players when we cut it down to 53. No one's releasing a good football player at the linebacker position, cutting the roster down from 90 to 80. Generally speaking, if a good player that you feel like can help your team gets released, it's going to be when teams have to make tough decisions to trim the roster from 80 to 53. Then you may see Washington maybe go after a guy or two in that situation. But I don't see us signing anybody as of right now. Eric DeBose, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Eric, writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Eric? Says, Gibson equals Matt Jones. I've seen that comment. I was perusing through the post-game video comment section, and I saw that comparison, and I was like, I don't want to see that. And I'm not even going to speak that into existence. Obviously, he's going down a very dark path because we've seen that movie before with Matt Jones, and we don't want to see it again. But that he's heading down that way. He's in Matt Jones territory for sure. You know, I think he is driving down Matt Jones Boulevard, but he hasn't turned off, right, into Matt Jones's neighborhood. Once he turns into the neighborhood, there's no going back. I'm hoping he'll get on the interstate and get off of Matt Jones Boulevard and never come back, right? But we'll see. He says, both talented as F, but just plagued by fumbles. Also, I finally get to see my team play this weekend in the preseason. I'm hyped. So that must mean you're out in the Missouri area. And so it's right close in your backyard, and you got a chance to go, and you're not going to miss the opportunity. Have fun. Enjoy it. And this will be a good one. Similar to last week when I felt like it was going to be a really good preseason game. And it was, even though I thought the Panthers were going to play their starters longer, and they didn't. But still, this is going to be a good preseason game. The Chiefs are going to play their starters more likely than not. They played them last week against the Bears. I think they're going to play them again in this game. It won't be for very long, especially if Mahomes and company do what they did this past week against the Bears, which is just march it right down the field and score. It might be one and done again. But enjoy the game. Whatever the case may be, enjoy the game, have fun, and look forward to chopping it up with you down the line. Eric DeBose. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, King of the North. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, Ron seemed irritated since the game Saturday. I said the same thing. He was irritated after the game on Saturday. Yesterday, it was a wet day, so he was trying to get in and out. You can tell. If you've ever played football and you've had one of those practices where it's just wet the entire day, it's just yucky. It's nasty. You just want to get out of those clothes. They're wet. You just want to be done with it. That's how yesterday kind of was. Today, he seemed a little ornery as well. So I think, today the practice wasn't as clean. So that's, I think, where a little bit of the, touchiness came from. Obviously, the reporters saw what was happening on the practice field. He doesn't like to be questioned about decisions that he's made. And they weren't necessarily questioning him about the decision on Antonio Gibson because everybody can understand why what's being done is being done. But it's still the fact that, hey, this guy's now on, second team. Now he's playing with the third team. Now he's on punt protection team. And he got asked about that, and I don't think he really felt like answering questions about it, which Ron knows better. He's a veteran. He knows how this game goes. You do those types of things at practice, you're going to be asked about it. So, he was definitely a bit salty after practice today, and really has been, like you said, since Saturday. He said he's giving other excuses why he's pissed, and I'm sure that's true. However, I think what he's not saying is the defense's third down woes are what's bothering him most. Now, he addressed this directly after the game. If you recall in the presser after the game, he talked to Jack. He told Jack, we have to – and remember, this was one of my biggest pet peeves last season. I told you guys this numerous times. We would get teams in the second and long, and they would get like 6 yards on second down. They would get 7 yards. They would get 5 yards after getting 1 or 2 on first down. It'd be 2nd and 8. And they'd run it, and they'd get 4, and it'd be 3rd and 4. You're like, bro, what the fuck? Like, seriously, what are we doing here? Like, a play that pissed me off in the game is a 3rd and 3, and the Panthers decide to run a draw, and they get like 5 yards. And I'm like, come on, guys. They ran a draw on 3rd and 3. That's a give-up play. They're giving you an opportunity to get off the field, and you didn't take it. And so there was a rollout by Baker Mayfield on a 2nd and 10 after the first down play it was the first down. They took a shot. That was the breakup by William Jackson III, and Bobby McCain. So it's 2nd and 10 now. And they get a little bit of pressure. Baker rolls out to his left. And it actually was a bootleg. And we played it perfectly initially. Everybody had honored their responsibility. No one was being greedy. And now he's rolling out, and nobody kind of, forces him to do something. And so Jamin Davis is running with the fullback out of the backfield, and he kind of just stops by the sideline, and Jamin Davis kind of starts eyeballing Baker Mayfield, loses his luggage for a second, and Mayfield throws a dart to him right by the sideline, and he ends up getting 6 on 2nd and 10. That play was a nothing burger. Everyone was covered. There was nowhere for him to go. Bobby McCain is starting to bear down on Baker Mayfield, and you just lose sight of your luggage, and you let this guy catch a 5-yard pass and then turn up the field and get an additional yard and make it 3rd and 4. Ron was like, they're getting too much on 2nd down and long, putting them in advantageous 3rd down situations. And that wasn't always the case, but that was one of the points of contention for Ron. And I don't know if it's the 3rd down defense or not, but I can tell you that's what had me up in arms after the game. I told you it's a preseason game. I'm not going to get pissed off, but then I got pissed off because we're talking about the same shit we were talking about last year. And if this defense is going to take a step, they have to get off the field on 3rd down. So I don't know if Ron is, upset about that and it just isn't saying anything because he doesn't want to stir the pot. Or if, because like you said, he's making excuses. He's telling you other reasons why. And those other reasons may be real reasons as to why he's upset. But I can just tell you this. The 3rd down defense has to be corrected. The Panthers were far too efficient on 3rd downs in the game. And this is before P.J. Walker and company got in the game. Mickey, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Miggy writes, AG is IDK. He's really not physical behind the line of scrimmage at all. That's running or blocking. He's trending towards damaged goods with the fumbles. I think where you see him not being a natural runner is when he's indecisive. The indecisiveness is clear and it's obvious when it comes from Antonio Gibson because like Ron said, he's stutter stepping, he's chopping his feet, but he's not going anywhere. He's slow to, hit the line. And, what's crazy is when he first started, he was too decisive. Remember, they told him he needed to be more patient. He needed to press the holes a bit more, find the cutback. He was too quick to cut back. He was too quick to make a decision. Now, he's growing as a running back. He's staying on that track longer, allowing the blocks to develop and finding those cutback lanes. But then there are times where, and I can tell you early in the game, there wasn't really anything there. But the biggest problem for me was if it's nothing there, Brian Robinson, there were runs where there wasn't anything there for Brian Robinson. He still got 3-4 out of those runs. At some point, you got to make up your mind, put your shoulder down, put your head down, and get what you can get. Get as much of what you can get as you can get. And he doesn't do that, and that's probably the most frustrating part is because instead of it being 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 6, with Gibson, a lot of times it's 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 9. And what you saw with Brian Robinson is that it'd be 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 6. And that makes a huge difference for some of you out there saying, well, the difference between 9 and 7 is 2 yards. So a big 2 effing yards, because if you get a 3-yard completion on, 2nd down and it's 3rd and it was 2nd and 9, it's 3rd and 6. That's still longer than you would like your 3rd down. Now it's a very manageable 3rd down, but it's not as manageable as you would like it to be versus you get 3 on 1st down and you get another 3 on 2nd down. Now it's 3rd and 4. All you need is a tight end to run 3 yards up the field and catch the football and turn around and he's got a 1st down. So it changes everything drastically. I don't want to push Antonio Gibson to the side. I'm not ready to do that yet. But I understand those of you who are ready to do that. And I'm not going to chastise you. I'm not going to point at you and wag my finger. I get it. And we've dealt with fumbling running backs in the past. Matt Jones, being brought up, definitely comes to mind. And you don't want to go down that road again. It's so frustrating when you get down to the 1 yard line and your running back fumbles the football. We've seen that. The Detroit Lions game back in 2016. I still think about that game. That was a very winnable football game, just like the one over in London versus the Bengals. It was a very winnable football game. We should have made the playoffs that year, but we didn't. And you just don't want to find yourself in a position. That Chargers game last year. I'm not saying we win if Gibson doesn't fumble because we were only up 3. It was only 16-13. They got Justin Herbert over there. He was shredding us. He's, the likelihood is that he's at least going to get them into field goal range, if not in the end zone regardless. But to gift wrap it for them, have that be the go-ahead score, that sucks. So, yeah, we'll see. To your point, I think the wide receiver background is why he's not as physical or is at least as aggressive as he could be at all times. Because when he fumbles and he comes back in the game, he gets pissed off and you see him run hard. We talked about this already. We talked about it last year when he came back in after the fumbles against Carolina. He ran physically and he dominated that game. We talked about him after the game on Saturday. When he fumbled, he came back in the game. He was running physically. He caught a pass out in the flats on the 3rd down, ran over a guy, got the 1st down. He ran angry. He's got to do that more often. He's got to do that without having fumbled first. Queese, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Queese writes, "Hey Lou, what's good with your boy Gibby, aka Brucey from The Longest Yard?" Shaking my head. Shouldn't have had that popcorn. Loose as hell with the rock. Hopefully running with the twos wakes him up. I don't know if I don't know if running with the 2s and the 3s and being on punt protection team is going to wake him up. I don't know if this is as much a physical problem as it is. I don't think this is a mental problem. I don't think he's in his own head, and that's why I think literally he doesn't know how to protect the football as he's going to the ground. A lot of his fumbles come as he's going to the ground. I don't think I remember one fumble, the one against Carolina, he literally bumped into one of his teammates and didn't expect to get hit, and the ball came out. But a lot of his fumbles are him going to the ground, and somebody poking the football free, punching it out as he's going to the ground. How do you simulate going to the ground and protecting the football? It's hard. It's easy to have a gauntlet of players around you all punching at the ball as you run through, and you're keeping your 5 points of pressure on the ball to not fumble it and keeping it tight, high and tight against your body. Yeah, that's easy to simulate. But what happens when you're in a pile, you're getting tackled, you're going down to the ground, and right before you hit the ground, a guy comes in and boop, pops it free. We've seen that happen to Gibson at least 3 or 4 times. My first inclination when he fumbled on Saturday was, oh, he's down. That ball came out so late. He's down. Only to watch the replay. Oh, he's far from down. And that's happened to me with him several times in the past where I'm like, oh, that ball came out so late. He's got to be down. No, he's not down. So I think he's got an issue protecting the football as he's going to the ground. We'll see, though. Got a super chat here from Malachi Malik. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Malachi Malik writes, Troy Apke is officially cut. Duran is the only player left from the 2018 draft. Yikes. Well, that shouldn't be surprising to you. Most of those draft classes don't exist in Washington any longer. So I'm not surprised. Are you? I mean, you shouldn't be. What I'm anxious to see is how some of these drafts turn out, like 2019, how that draft ends up shaking out. But, the 2020 draft was really this group, Ron Rivera and company, their first draft together. I kind of gave them a pass on that draft because, again, a lot of those guys got there so late in the process. Those weren't their scouts. That wasn't, them having a chance to sit down, digest what this team is, what it needs, and then going out and adding via the draft. They literally got here and had to kind of catch up to where everyone else was. But, that's Chase Young. That's obviously Antonio Gibson. And if he can't straighten the ship up and sail right, he could be a B word, right? Obviously, Chase Young, I still believe in Chase. You guys know that. I'm not one of these people that want to throw the B word around, but there are a lot of people out there that are throwing the B word around very loosely, I may add, when it comes to Chase Young. But if he's not what we felt like we were getting when we drafted him, that all of a sudden that 2020 draft is really in question because Sadiq Charles doesn't look like a winner from that draft. Obviously, Antonio Gandy Golden is already gone from that draft. So all you're looking at essentially, Keith Ishmael has been a solid contributor, but he's a backup. He's a 5th round pick. So, I mean, that's usually what you're drafting back there anyway. The only guy really that you would be then looking at, because that went from a super strong draft with, Chase and Gibson and Curl, would be the last Mohican essentially. It went from a really strong draft with all 3 of those guys being massive hits for us, with Sadiq Charles providing depth, same with Keith Ishmael, to all of a sudden that 2020 draft is not as appealing, right? So we'll see. I haven't given up on Gibby. I clearly believe in Chase Young, and Cam Curl is the real deal. So, we'll see what happens. But that's what this organization has been. It's part of the reason why we're in the predicament that we're in as we speak. Johnny Boy 26, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Johnny Boy 26 writes, if the right player is available, trade Gibson. I mean, if you love Jonathan Williams that much and you think he could be a good backup to Brian Robinson and you believe in Brian Robinson, then you could conceivably do something like that. Like, for instance, the Bears and their situation with their linebacker, all right? They could use a running back there. Now, they still have the kid that they drafted out of Iowa State, and he's a beast, and I love him. But he's also a guy that gets injured. Gibson, I think, could be very intriguing for a team like the Bears, potentially. And you could, package up a pick with him. He's still got another year after this year on his contract. I mean, these are the things that you play around with. I don't think they're trading Gibby. I don't even think this is a conversation that they're having. But, if you really wanted to get your hands on Roquan Smith, that could be something that you entertain, right? So I don't think Roquan Smith is getting traded yet. Haven't heard really anything about his situation since he started barking and said he wanted out. I haven't heard the Bears respond to that. I haven't heard anything else from Roquan Smith's camp. That said, I don't see them trading Gibson, but that's an interesting dynamic. If, you're losing confidence in him and you don't think he's the guy for the job, then you should do something with him. If you can get something for him, you should. Let's see. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Twin D, writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, I should say. My guy, Twin D, writes, I'm here alone in the church, dressed in all black because of the loss of my man Trap. When he got released, you were the first person that I thought about. My guy, Twin D, was the first person that I thought about when he got released. I said, damn, I got Twin D's boy Trap. Got popped. And he says, being able to release him suggests the team is better. I'm okay. I think that's what it points to. And I said that at the top of the show when I talked about Trap being released. What it speaks to is the greater depth of this roster now, where you don't have the luxury of keeping a one-dimensional player around because there's just too many good players that you feel like you need to keep on your roster, don't want to expose to the rest of the league. And so a guy like Apke, who for all intents and purposes only served one purpose here. He was really good at what he did, but it was just one purpose. You feel like there are other guys that can do that and still be multifaceted here in Washington. So to your point, I think it does suggest that this team is better. Miss Perry, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My girl, Condo P. Miss Perry writes, hit the like button, sub up, and turn on that notification bell. Y'all heard her. Over 470 of you are out there, yet we have not hit the 200 mark on the likes, which is ridiculous if you ask me. Hit the like button if you're out there. Run the numbers up. And also, I'll take this opportunity since my girl, Miss Perry, decided to give me an opportunity to give you guys a public service announcement. If you are interested in playing in any of the LTN exclusives, whether it's Winners or Losers League, which is a year-long football pool, essentially where we keep tabs. We tabulate your wins and losses from the entire season. And then a winner is at the end, and you get all the money and a championship belt. If you're interested in that, the link is down in the description of this video right now. I will also go back after the video is done and pin that as a comment as well. If you want to be in the Soul Survivor pool, you've ever played in the Survivor pool, it's a ton of fun. If you haven't and you want to participate in one, I've got one. I've been doing it for 10 years now. It's a ton of fun. I haven't won it yet. I look forward to trying to win it this year. The link, again, down in the description in order to sign up. Again, all of these have fees attached to them because we're doing this for money. We're not doing this for fun. It is fun, but it's only fun when there's some money involved, right? It's a little extra adrenaline rush there. So if you're interested in the Survivor pool, the link is down in the description as well. And then the weekly pick'em pool. If the Winners and Losers League is a little too much for you in terms of a year-long commitment, then there is the weekly pick'em pool, which is week by week. So there is no long-term obligation, just that week's picks need to be made and you win the pot from that week. So all of those links down in the description. Check that out if you are interested. Thank you, Miss Perry. Let's see. So Ninja X, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. So Ninja X writes, Cherry fans need to stop obsessing over Redskins. Look, there are a lot of fans that just haven't come to grips with the fact that the name is no longer Redskins. We're almost 3 years removed. It happened July 2020, right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, where the name was changed, right? Or the name was going to no longer be in use. After the George Floyd murder, that's pretty much what really helped facilitate the change. All the sponsors got on board and pretty much banded together and said, if you don't change your name, we're out. And we knew it was going to come down to something like that. And so the name is gone. It's not coming back. And I get it for a lot of you, for all of us. I mean, none of us wanted the name to change. And it'd be one thing if it was overtly racist and Indians everywhere across the nation from all walks of life were saying, you have to get rid of this name. It is so disrespectful to our heritage and to us as people and who we are. That's not what was being said. And it's frustrating that, it ended up, being kind of run out of town by PC America. But that's the fact of the matter. That's what it is. The name's gone. It's not coming back. And so either you could get with Commanders, you can still call them the Skins, you can call them whatever you want to call them, but they're the Commanders now. And so it is what it is. I don't. If somebody calls them the Redskins. What I won't allow you to call us is the Washington team. We have a name now. If you want to call us the Redskins, I don't care. That's fine. You still calling us the Redskins. You're still calling us the Skins. You're still calling, them the football team. You call them whatever. We're just not Washington anymore. We have a name. Anyway. And I probably, if you call us the football team, I'm like, nah, we Commanders. If you call us the Redskins, I'm not going to say anything. Skins, Redskins, I'm not going to say nothing. If football team or the Washington team, like how Law was doing we got a name. It's the Commanders. Get it right. Let's see. Got another super chat here from So Ninja X. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. So Ninja X. Greatly appreciate you. So Ninja X writes, can't risk Kyle getting filthy mitts on AG and Debo. Well, I don't know if Antonio Gibson would be a Kyle Shanahan type of back, because Kyle likes those one cut and go backs, the guys that can get downhill quickly, be decisive, more natural running backs. The other Kyle that would get his hands on him, though, I think is Kyle Smith. Remember, he was here when we drafted Antonio Gibson, and I think he, more so than anything else, would be really interested, because I think Kyle was here that first year when we got all those free agents and we drafted all of those guys, Chase and all those guys. He was here for that, if I'm not mistaken. He wasn't here for the 2021 draft class, and he definitely wasn't here for 2022. So I think Kyle Smith in Atlanta, just like when we released Fabian Moreau, he scooped him up. I think he would scoop up Antonio Gibson. They don't have any elite backs in Atlanta. That would be the thing that would pain me, is if, and they're not cutting Gibson, so you can kill that noise. He's not going anywhere. Gibson's going to be good for this team this year. I'm not coming off of that either, by the way. But if he's fumbling the ball, he can't be good because he's not going to be on the field. But if he can hold on to the rock, he's going to be really good for us. Anyway, what would pain me is if it didn't work out here and then he went to somewhere, say Atlanta, and he starts eating. Starts holding on to the ball, because that's the only thing that's stopping this guy from being dynamic and elite, I think, is he's got to hold on to the football. The talent is there. It suggests that he could be one of the top backs in the league. But you can't do that if you're not on the field, and you're not on the field if you keep fumbling. So I think you got the wrong Kyle. I don't think it'd be Shanahan. I think it'd be Smith that would try to get his hands on him. Malachi Malik, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Malachi Malik, who writes, Drake London already having injury issues from one catch. Thanks, Atlanta. LOL. I look, I didn't know. I knew he had some injury concerns coming in, but that wasn't my problem with him. And the guy might still be fantastic as an NFL wide receiver. I'm not going to write him off because of one injury. But I never wanted him. And I'm glad Atlanta did me a favor, and I'm still glad and very thankful and appreciative of what Atlanta did for us, because we would have taken him. I truly, firmly believe we would have taken him at 11 had the Falcons not taken him. So, he's banged up already, hurt his knee a little bit. He's going to be fine. We'll see. We'll see what Drake London ends up being, but I am definitely gracious to the Atlanta Falcons, for sure. Stop fumbling, young man. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Stop fumbling, young man writes. Yo, LT, who doesn't stink but stinks? If you're talking about on this team, we don't really have a lot of guys that fit that criteria. In past years, there was always one or two guys like, why is he here? I think this is going to make some of you mad, but I think the guy on the roster that currently stinks is Kelvin Harmon. He stinks. I was so disappointed when he dropped that deep ball from Sam Howell. I mean, are you serious? Then like a little kid, he runs out of bounds and then dives back in and catches it. I'm like, you can't do that, dude. That's a penalty. So I think Kelvin Harmon stinks. personally. But anyway, I digress. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Fat American writes, Lou, you skipped over my free member chat. So I've explained this before. You might not have heard it, but on the monitor that I'm looking at the chat. So I have three monitors in front of me, but two of them I can see the chats on. And one, I'm just kind of watching my audio levels, making sure that the visual quality is where it needs to be. And so the one that I'm reading the comments off of primarily, which is StreamYard, you don't see the YouTube member chat, comments. I can see that on because I have YouTube also pulled up on my other monitor, but I don't really use that to peruse the comments because you can't see those, if that makes any sense. Like if I click on it, I wouldn't see it on the StreamYard as, oh, it's a highlighted comment from a mob member. And also it doesn't show up on the stream on StreamYard. It doesn't show up as a highlighted member comment, if that makes any sense. Maybe that was a little convoluted, but the short version is super chats show up, those comments don't on StreamYard. So if I'm doing it on my other computer, I ain't gonna lie to you, it's on its last legs. It's I love this computer to death. It was what got me in the game, but I probably need another computer. And once I get another computer, and then I may be able to, do that a little bit more often. But anyway, thank you for the super chat. I don't want you to think I'm intentionally not reading those. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny, writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, our secondary is hot garbage. Baked ZD, lost in space, tired of it. I don't agree with that. I agree that there are some frustrating aspects to our secondary and the way that they play, because you watch other, secondaries that play sticky coverage when they're in zone. They're passing things off. They're aggressive. They're physical. They're zone and pattern matching. And then you see our defense, and it doesn't look anything like the good secondaries that are, abrasive. I want this defense to be more abrasive. I just always feel like there's no threat of violence other than with Bobby McCain, right? And then there's not enough guys putting their hands on receivers, and it feels like everything's too easy. So I don't think it's hot garbage, though. I disagree with that take. I think this secondary is going to be better this year. I do. And we haven't even seen it at full strength with Benjamin St-Juste and what he looks like in the slot. So I've got high hopes for this secondary this year. I truly do. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Fat American, double up, thank you for doubling up. Fat American writes, all right, I'll repeat it then. I said, Lou, I'll eat salads every day to get that 2005 defense back. I cry myself to sleep every day missing that defense. Don't think we'll ever have a defense like that. It's, first of all, the game is played totally different than it was in 2005. That said, the caliber of athletes that was on that 2005 defense. And there were some guys that I loved. I loved Marcus Washington. He was one of my favorite players of that, era there with, Gibbs 2.0 defensively. There was Sean Taylor, obviously. There was Carlos Rogers. There were some good football players, guys that they spent high draft capital on. Then there were the veterans, the Philip Daniels of the world, and the Ronaldo Wins, and all of those guys that filled out that roster that were really good football players. Cornelius Griffin, and I mean, it was a really good team, and there weren't many holes defensively with that team in particular in 05. Ryan Clark was on that 05 team. One of the mistakes they made after that season was not re-signing him and allowing him to go to Pittsburgh. And I think Antonio Pierce was on that 05 team, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't re-sign him either after the 06 season, and then he goes to New York in 2007 and wins a Super Bowl with the Giants, which made me vomit in my mouth. So it was a really good team. Like, that was a lot of homegrown stuff mixed in with a number of veterans that just fit together. And this is a solid group. It's just a really solid group, that we have here. But that was a really good defense. And the guy calling the defense was really good too. And that's part of what made the defense really good, is that Greg Williams was the mastermind behind that defense. And he was never scared, ever, on some bone crusher shit. He won't never scared. So, sometimes I feel like Jack's a little timid. He's a little scared to pull the trigger. Like, Jack, pull the trigger. Sometimes you just got to go for it. And every now and again, Jack will pull the trigger and send one extra guy. Like, we saw it in this game. He sent a couple of safety blitzes. Both of them came scot-free. One hit home with Jeremy Reeves getting the sack. And he caught one early in the game with Bobby McCain coming scot-free, but, the ball got thrown before he got there. But I'm like, yo, be aggressive. Like, send 7. Every now and again, just to let them know, hey, this shit is possible. I can send 7 on your bitch ass. We don't do that. We don't send 7. We might get freaky and send 6, But usually when we blitz, it's 5. Anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat, Fat America. I'll tell you this. Don't keep crying yourself to sleep, because you're not getting that defense again. That's all I know. Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat, Jamal Hamlin. If I see something here from you, keep up the good work, Lou. Thank you, Jamal. I really, truly do appreciate you, Jamal Hamlin. Condo P said Sean Springs. I mean, the defense didn't have any holes in it. It really did. It was a really top to bottom solid group, as solid as you'll get. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Big Money Sonny writes, come on, Lou. I respectfully disagree. Thank God we have top 5 to keep us in games, but the secondary is, I don't know what that word is. He says, stress on the double S. I can tell you this. They are frustrating at times, and I get it. But maybe that's fricassee, I guess. I can tell you this. The secondary, I think, has the potential to be good this year. I love the secondary coach. I think that they're going to play the defense that's called. And if the defense calls for them to play 8 yards off, that's what they're going to do. I would like them to be more aggressive in certain spots. Every play, I don't want my corners up in the face of a receiver, because you can get beat like that. I'm not saying that that's always the best method, to be up in a guy's face, delete the airspace, be aggressive and hands-on. But what I am saying is there is a time where that's called for. And it doesn't seem like we do that enough. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I don't think you're giving them enough credit. I think you're dismissing William Jackson III. I think you're probably in the group of fans that think that Kendall Fuller's overrated. I think Bobby McCain's a good addition to this team, and I think he's going to play well for us this year. I know you love Cam Curl, and so I think Benjamin St. Juste, from what we saw last year, and again they've got him playing in the slot this year. What we saw last year, he looks like a good football player, a young good football player. I don't subscribe to that. I can't co-sign that. We'll just have to agree to disagree there. Big Money Sonny. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Fat American writes, I also wanted to give some props to Mayhew. I think his draft picks have been solid all around and have a lot of potential to contribute. Pretty nice. So far, again, it's too early to say, but and the jury's still out. But I think they've done a really solid job with what they've done. I told you guys I've been pleased with what they've done in the draft to this point. But again, time will tell. It's early, and we have to see. Can't really make any assumptions about those draft classes quite yet. Stop fumbling, young man. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Stop fumbling, young man who writes, we need an enforcer on the D like the Eifler hit. I mean, it's so hard to do that because I like the officiating crew we had with Sean Smith calling the game. You get the wrong crew, and they're going to throw the flag on that. And there's no challenging that. That was a clean hit. The hit that De'Ami Brown took, that was a clean hit. You get the wrong officiating crew, that's a flag. And so while you say that, it doesn't matter. You get the wrong officiating crew, they're throwing a flag on that every time. And you're going to have to live with that shit. That's frustrating. The days of an enforcer, those shits are over, man. I don't know of many enforcers in the league anymore. I don't even know if that moniker can even exist in the current climate that we're in the NFL. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, this is the year Fat American starts loving a new team. I'm tired of remember when. Hashtag let's do it for Fat American. I agree. I'm Fat American keeps reminiscing, and there's nothing wrong with having a flashback every now and again, but Fat American, like he said, he cries himself to sleep thinking about the 2005 defense almost every night. He brings it up so often that you forget that there's actually a team playing this year in 2022 sometimes. Hopefully this is the year that we can create new memories. I've talked about this already, creating new memories. It's time to do that. We'll see if they do that or not. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Fat American writes, listen, Big Money. Nope, never. That's my defense, bro. We're not trying to take their place. Okay, understand what Sonny's saying. We're not trying to take 05's place because you can't do that. What he's saying is create new memories, new fond memories. You'll never let go of 05, but also be able to talk very, very fond of 2022. And there's nothing wrong with that. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, Lou, fricassee is a stew dish with fried meat in white sauce. I have no idea what you're referring to. Never seen it. Never heard of it. Okay, that's new on me. Maybe I'm not cultured enough to know what fricassee. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Fricassee is. I'm taking a stab at it. I'm trying to use my phonics here to sound it out, but I've never heard of it. Never heard of it. Let's see. All right. Fat American. Got another super chat from Fat American. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Fat American writes, Lou, if we get great starting contributions from Jahan, Mathis, Robinson, Butler, and Turner, I think that would be considered a huge W regarding that trade back to number 11. No? I like those picks. Gotta wait. I agree. I told you when the draft was completed, I said this is a good draft. It's not a great draft, okay? It's a good draft with football players that will come in and contribute right away. It may ultimately turn into a great draft, but I think the floor for this draft is that it's a really good draft. I don't think there's no way we look back on this draft and say, man, that was a bust of a draft. These guys suck. I don't think there's any way possible we come out of this draft saying that. I think worst case scenario for Darian Mathis is a starter for this team if we don't resign Daron Payne. If not, he's a quality backup in the Tim Settle, Matt Ioannidis model, and we feel good about that, even if it's only for a 4-year period. Brian Robinson, if he's not starting with Gibby having issues, he's going to be a quality second running back, and we're going to feel really good about him. Obviously, Jahan Dotson, I think he's got star written all over him. I told you guys when we drafted him, we got us a really good football player. And so, and the rest is history with the rest of that draft. Whether it's Sam Howell, we have no idea what he's going to be. Cole Turner, we have no idea what he's going to be, but we think we have a guy that can really do some things, the likes of which we haven't seen here in Washington in quite some time. So the potential for this draft the upside through the roof. But we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Thank you for the super chat, Fat American. Got another one here from Fat American who writes, hashtag ain't nobody taking my 2005 defense away. That's my defense. And we're not trying to. Okay. We're not trying to do that at all. I see Mega says fricassee. Is that what I think that's what I said? Did I say that? I think I said fricassee. Maybe I didn't. If I didn't say it, I'm saying it now. Fricassee. And I know when I see it now, fricassee. Okay. I have no idea. I'm going to look it up now. But anyway, that is going to do it for me. That's the last super of the stream. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me on the stream. We'll be live again tomorrow night. And we'll talk more about anything that is, happened with the team. And it might be an in and out stream depending on how things go, because we'll do another stream on Friday to prepare us for the Saturday preseason game like we did last week. So stay abreast of everything that's going on. And if anything major happens, you'll see my face all up in your space. But we'll be live tomorrow night regardless. That said, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I am a Washington fan etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, you know what it is. Post up and take command. You guys have a great evening. We will reconvene tomorrow. Until then, you guys take care. I got one more super on the way out. Hashtag, this is from Fat American. Thank you for the super chat, Fat American. Greatly appreciate you, who writes. Hashtag free my ninja Greg. It's Greg with 2 G's too. If you're going to talk about Greg, you got to put that second G up there. All right. Anyway, that was my guy too back in the day. He should have got the head coaching job, but that's another conversation for another day. You guys, go ahead, get out of here, and I'll see you guys next time. God bless and good night.